Step right up, folks. You're now entering It's a Circus, where parenting isn't always a show-stopping act, but it's certainly entertaining. I'm your host, Elsa, here to prove that no one really knows what they're doing, and that's perfectly fine. Let's have some real conversations, peel back the layers, and remind you that you're never alone in the madness. Let's get the show rolling. Hello, and welcome to Season 2 of It's a Circus podcast. I'm so excited to kick this season off with this guest. I would consider her an expert in her craft and in her field. And it is such a great conversation. I actually met Alyssa through social media years ago, probably 5 or 6 years ago, and she gave me a reading. She was an astrologer at the time, and it was fantastic. And we've stayed kind of Instagram friends since then. I had 2 little babies back to back, and she transitioned her career to birth work. She's called a full spectrum doula. So she does prenatal care, postnatal care for families and specifically for the mother. So it's pretty awesome. This was a dream guest of mine. Her insight is incredible. The way she thinks about birth, the way she regards birth is incredible. I think that this is a great episode for anyone. I did hire a doula for both of mine, and I don't know what I would do without either of them. They are seared into my memory, and I'm so thankful that I was able to have that type of support. I think my husband would agree because the doula also helped him too. So it was a wonderful asset for us to have on both births. I could not recommend being supported by a doula more than anything. She went from astrologer talking about the astrology at people's birth to actually serving the birth process, which I think is a beautiful story and transition. So here is her bio. Alyssa is a San Diego-based full-spectrum doula, folk herbalist, and astrologer devoted to guiding families through the sacred thresholds of birth, postpartum, and transformation. Her practice weaves intuitive care with ancient wisdom, offering grounding, soulful support for modern families in the San Diego area and beyond. Alyssa holds space for birth as ceremony, blending physiological care with ritual, herbal remedies, and cosmic insight, from prenatal preparation to postpartum integration. She serves San Diego families with tenderness, reverence, and a commitment to restoring trust in the intelligence of the body and the beauty of each unique journey. So without further ado, I'm so excited for this conversation. Here is Alyssa. Welcome, Alyssa, to It's a Circus podcast. I am so thrilled to talk to you. In fact, I'm dying to dig into everything. And I hope that you're ready to just spill, because
cool.
I'm ready to go and go. Yes. Okay. So walk me through just what you do, how you got there, because it is fascinating.
It's a journey for sure.
It's a journey. Oh, man.
Yes. So I guess in this moment right now today, I would say my name's Alyssa. I'm a full spectrum doula. So I do labor and postpartum. I also work with loss and grief and all the things. And so how I got and arrived in this moment is very complex. No path is ever trajectory is clear or straight. And so there's been a lot of twists and turns and things that were unexpected. And at the root of all of this was just me following my intuition. It was there's something here. Something feels juicy. I don't know what it is. Okay, let me keep following this thread. And the threads just keep following me to other threads and people and teachers and connections and clients and whoever's, showing up in my world. So yeah, I'm a doula first and foremost, I guess. Really, I'm a student in many ways to my plants and tea and all of my practices. I feel very much always in the role of a learner. And so yeah, I would call myself a folk herbalist. I've never traditionally studied herbalism, but I'm very connected with herbs and plants and the way that I work with them, and especially with my postpartum clients. It's something that has come up a lot and has been a really, useful tool for the postpartum period. If people know me in my past life, people know me as like an astrologer.
Yes, yes.
Which I joke that I, went from birth charts to birth work, and I think that is such a funny thing, but it's very true. I remember the first day of my doula training, they had asked, like, "How many births have you attended?" And at that point, it had just been one. I was like, "Well, one, but I've read thousands of birth charts at this point. So I've looked at a lot of births just from a different lens." And so that has been very useful to me in my doula practice and the way that I approach birth work. And everything has just kind of layered and stacked and really goes symbiotically together into this whatever I'm doing my work in the world at this moment in time. So yeah, it feels really sweet.
It's so beautiful. And I just find it so inspiring when I meet people that do that, because that is really what should drive us, is just following that, leaning into like that next thing, being present
Yeah.
enough to see what's presented in front of us and moving through with kind of calling you.
Hmm.
So just in general, I'm so inspired by that. And then secondly, I got connected to you because I got a reading from you
Yes, long time ago.
like 4 years ago, maybe
Yes.
4 or 5.
Yeah, long time ago.
Wild. And I immediately loved what I saw. And then when I talked to you, I died over how you gave information.
Mm.
So beautiful, so intuitive, so wonderful. And then I can't stop following you on social. I'm like legit biggest fan. I'm like a like here, a like here. I'm obsessed over here.
Yeah.
And as I kind of, saw you from afar, I was also going through like two kiddos back to back,
Yes.
moving across country, like doing all the things. I know you moved to,
Mhm.
like all of that stuff. I was like, she is just like on this wavelength that I just really, really love.
Yeah.
So just thank you for being here. And it's amazing to hear that.
Yeah, and I feel that about the people that I work with. And I say this in my doula practice, there's a doula for everyone. There's an astrologer for everyone. Like, not everyone is
Right.
going to resonate with me, and that's okay. And I want
Yeah.
people ultimately to find the person who's an energetic match to them. So whatever that may look like,
Yes.
and that goes so deep into like what we value and what is important to us and just where we are energetically in the world. And there will be times where people really resonate with what I'm sharing now. And then in like 3 months, they won't. And then in 2 years, they'll circle back with me and be like, what you said that time was actually true. And and I'm like, it's all right. We're all on our own journeys. And so we have to really honor what our path looks like. And it's, again, that like non-linear thing.
Yeah. And that I think is just more realistic these days
Yeah.
than what is before.
Yeah.
The tension that I have felt coming into parenthood and motherhood specifically is that tension to kind of go with my intuition, which is taking a beat, focusing on my family,
Mhm.
focusing on my body, rehealing, like all of that kind of stuff. But you feel this pressure and rub to bounce back and get back and all of that stuff.
I knew we were going to talk about this
However,
today. I knew we were going to talk about this today. We'll keep going.
I mean, I feel like it's everywhere. And what I am dying for you to share, because you have seen this up close and
Yeah.
personal. I like, what are you seeing? What are like some trends? What's like your philosophy? What's the whole thing?
Well, this is so interesting because this really came into my field yesterday. So I have a postpartum client
Ah,
right now who's 4 weeks postpartum. This is her first baby. Okay, so she's in
okay.
the newborn trenches. This is very real. It's not something that's like just a catchphrase. This is very like
Yeah.
much a part of, the beginning of parenting, and especially your first child, because you've never done this before. You have no idea what's going on to the baby, to your body, to how much they should be eating, to how much this, to listening to their
Yes.
cues. So there's all this unknown. And then there's also the societal patriarchal pressure for women to bounce back and go back to work. And also, be going through the biggest hormonal change we'll ever have as women,
Yes.
except menopause. So, like our first bleed, right after birth, menopause, the three biggest hormone shifts we go through as women. I'm like, men in and of itself, like, can't understand that concept. And then it's like,
No.
and also taking care of a baby, taking care of
Right.
yourself. So the pressure becomes extreme. And so it's, pressurizing this system of expectation of how you should look, of how you should be feeling. Well, this person is already, the conversation we had yesterday with my client, and I'll share this because it's very important. She was upset that at 4 weeks postpartum, she can't work out because I basically had told her she's not cleared to work out yet. And she has an
Right.
active infection. She's not producing milk, all these things where I'm like, okay, let's address the healing first. And I think there's many layers to why this cannot happen in our culture and in our society. Like, we are not set up to allow the mother to heal. And
Right.
that in and of itself breaks my heart because
Yeah.
there's so much tending that needs to happen in order to how we go through postpartum is how we go through menopause. So we're really setting up the body in a very malleable state for how later in life we're going to go through certain rites of passage. So it's very tender. And you're really open, like sensitivity
Yes.
wise, you're like way
Yes.
open. You just went through the
Yes.
most psychedelic portal. And then I'm
Yes.
like, why are we talking about working out? Like, I'm like, let's talk about feeding our babies. Let's talk about feeding ourselves. Let's make sure that we're just like getting out in the sunshine and like having a
Right.
moment to breathe and collect ourselves. And so there's so much societal expectation and pressure. And I think social media is like the biggest one. And so I always kind of address in my postpartum intake of like, what does your relationship to social media look like right now? And is it
Right.
healthy? Like, do you feel good when
Yeah.
you're on there? Because most people are going to say no because
Right.
your body is changing, you don't recognize yourself, you're a new mother. What was that experience like for you? Especially the first
Oh
time.
my God. So, yes, I think so I had the babies back to back
Mhm.
at, so I was postpartum and pregnant at the same
Yeah.
time. And then I was a new mom again at the same time with the infant.
Mhm.
So, yes, I would say for me, that's exactly what it was. The birth experience itself, I did have a doula and
Mhm.
I did work with a team of doulas. I had a healthy birth, but it was still
Of
traumatizing
course.
because it is.
Yes.
And then that was like difficult to get over. Breastfeeding was really challenging. And then the dynamic with my husband
Mhm.
changed. And that was also a stress I was not anticipating
Mhm.
to carry.
Mhm.
And then, although I would say my mat leave at the time was generous compared to everything else,
Mhm.
but getting back into that mindset, and I had to travel a lot, so I had to leave the baby. It was impossible on so many levels. I had no I could not keep my level of work at an integrity that I was okay with,
Mhm.
um, as well as being and learning how to be a mom
Right.
and then a mom and a wife at the same time. And then the pressures of myself and the expectation I had on myself, what I envisioned, and then the pressures that I assumed from the people around me
Yeah.
all like collapsed.
Mhm.
And I felt a level of that for a long time because of one baby and then next baby.
Mhm.
And then literally my littlest one is like 27 months now.
Mhm.
When he was close to 2, that's when I finally felt fresh air.
Right. So years. Literal years.
Years.
Years. Years and years.
Years.
So like the expectation of like 4 weeks to be back and finding yourself is just so it's very earth-shattering to people because we want to go back to I think that's the other important key factor is we want to go back to the person we were before motherhood, and that person does not exist anymore. And so there's a
Right.
huge reckoning that happens of like, well, what are we gonna do now? And I
Right.
don't want to be the bearer of bad news here, but you will come to that moment in your own time whenever you're meant to.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
they say hormonally it takes 3 years to regulate back out. Some parts of the world, like especially Africa, Australia, they believe postpartum periods like 9 years. That you're in postpartum for 9 years.
Holy smokes. I
Yes.
mean, I'm not 9 years postpartum, but I get that.
Till you
Feels
like
that.
really regulate, till you really come into a sense of yourself. And it makes sense for,
Yes.
what that looks like. And then there's some interesting like astrology that overlaps with those timelines in terms of how long it takes babies and children to form a sense of like identity of who they are. Like, and so it's just curious to watch, like, it's a lot of patterns and cycles and trends. And then, just knowing what I know, it's like, okay, yeah, like this is how I can best support someone who's kind of operating like this. And then this is how I can best support someone who's operating like this. And we're all coming into birth with different cultural expectations, different societal expectations, different relationships to our body. It's a huge one that comes up all the time. Is like women not feeling safe in their body, not feeling confident in their body, not trusting their body. That's like I think that's one of the biggest things that I work through with women is like, so not only am I, dueling babies into the world, but it's like I'm also coaching moms and dads.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
On how to bring
if
babies.
anything, I feel like that is where the attention should be.
Right. The babies are okay,
Yeah.
They're
gonna be taken
They're
care
gonna be
of.
taken care of.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so for you, themes across the board, do you, when you are talking to a potential client or what do you call them, a client or a...
I call them my moms, and then my husband gets confused because he's like, "Wait, your mom or the mom?"
Oh my God,
I'm like, "No, no, no, not my mom. The moms."
Okay, well, as you get approached by these new potential moms,
Right.
the moms that are coming through, the themes I would imagine, like when do people come to you? And
Oh, man.
is there a theme across the board where you're like, oh, I've got to support people in this way?
Yes and no. It's been really interesting because I have a huge spectrum of people. So, like,
Yeah.
all, a huge range of ages from like 20 to mid 40s. That's my age range. So that's huge.
Yeah.
And then last year I was noticing who I was connecting with was a lot of first-time parents. And then this year that kind of shift. A lot of people that I'm connecting with now, these are their second or third children. And that they're kind of reclaiming their birth story. So that's kind of like who right now I'm interfacing a lot with, were people who, and here's the thing, San Diego is we have a lot of government, Navy type people here. There's a naval base.
Yeah.
There is a hospital in town that is specifically geared towards the people that are in the Navy. And I would say that that is not the best care that you're going to find in San Diego. And so a lot of people have gone to this hospital and experienced really traumatic birth stories and are now like exploring other options. Like, what if I do go to a birthing center? Or what if I do go to, choose to birth at home? What does that look like? And so that's kind of who I've been interacting a lot with lately. And then the other half is always first-time parents. Like, first-time parents are just, there's a preciousness about them because they haven't gone through the birth journey yet. So they have a lot of questions. They have so many questions. Bless them.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what you don't know. So
exactly.
There's so much unknown in that, in going through birth. And I mean, I didn't know so many of these things till I studied to become a doula. How would I know that?
Yeah.
No one talks about it.
That is what I find so strange too. And literally, this is the point, because I am so shocked. I love how you use the word reckoning, because that's exactly what it is. You have this like recalibration, this reckoning where you really have to be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
And this is where I am now. This is my life. now, is I was shocked that I didn't hear friends around me talk about this. I didn't hear even like, I don't know, peers at work talk about. Like I just was like, how am I the only one that had like the most insane experience ever?
No.
Now we know that's
Yeah.
not true.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. But it's just that is so isolating. That
Mhm.
feels like you're doing all these things like wrong almost. There's like just no information. Nobody talks about it.
Yeah, and that is a byproduct of having a very insular experience of life. Like in America,
Right.
we do not have most people do not have intergenerational living. So most people don't
Right.
have a grandparent who's going to say like, "Oh yeah, that's fine, it's normal," or like, "Oh, let me help you do this," or
Right.
um we don't have that sense of connection with elders or babies, and so we're a very disconnected society, and then that breeds the expectation to be on the mother. And it's honestly unfair because how can the mother hold all of these
Yes.
expectations as hers? And so then we go through and look at why America has such high postpartum depression rates and all these things that are very interconnected to how we operate as a society. Um, and of course, it's like not something that we're gonna fix, but it's just a
Right.
observation in that, you know,
Right.
people who raise children, with other birthing mothers, there's more of a sense of being taken care of. Like, your baby will be taken care of because someone's watching the baby. There's always eyes on children. Um, and I notice this so much when I travel too. It's one thing that I really, really love, and I would love to hear your perspective on this because America is so like anti-baby. Like you bring a baby to like a restaurant and everyone's upset. But when you
Oh
go
yeah.
to Europe or when you go to Mexico, and I go to Mexico a lot. So when I go to Mexico,
Mhm.
everyone loves the baby. They're holding the baby, they're like dancing around with the
Yeah.
baby. And then here it's like, you're getting the eyes, and that again is then pressuring the mother to have your baby
Yes.
present a certain way out in public or whatever.
Yes.
And it's their children. Your baby.
The thing that I have heard so many times is that looking the motherhood journey specifically in the US, it like there's this knowing and understanding of like, whoa, like you did that. We're all kind of like moving through this society that doesn't quite support a mother's experience or a mother's healing or a mother's
Mhm.
support for whatever she chooses to do after she moves through that portal. It is the empathy that I don't think is there if, if you're not around.
Right. I read a quote this morning on Substack that also I love Substack.
Oh, I know.
It is like a breath of fresh air to me to be on Substack as opposed to any other social channels. But this woman wrote basically something about how before I was a mother, I never recognized mothers. And she's like, now that's the only
Yes.
thing that I can see.
Yes.
And I was like, that
Oh,
is
that is the truth. It really is. I mean, my professional industry is beauty, and there is, yes, definitely powerful women. There's a ton of men. When I was moving up through the professional route, I looked around and there was not a mother to be.
right,
And there wasn't.
right.
From a peer level, there was an attitude and a conversation that I definitely participated in.
Mhm.
When you look up to see, oh, what's that next step? It's not a mother. It's not a beautiful example of life balance,
Right.
at least in my experience. So that I think when you look around and you're like, oh, is this really what I want?
Mhm.
It wasn't. I think that is kind of hard to take in.
Mhm. Totally. And the idea of work-life balance, especially if anyone who's listening is an entrepreneur, you already know that that doesn't
Yeah.
exist.
Yeah. What even
I'm
is
like,
it?
work
Yeah,
life.
exactly.
I'm like, work, work. And it's hard to really shut my brain off and go into my life. And it's something that I've been an entrepreneur for the last 10 years and I'm
Yeah.
still figuring it out. And then it's like, okay,
Right.
you know, my husband and I are trying to have a baby and it's like, what's it
Yeah.
going to look like when the baby comes? And it's something to definitely, I like that you looked around and saw like, there's something interesting about being a doula is that doulas really support other doulas. Something I've learned, and it's like we really have each other's backs because there's not many of us, and we really need to
Mhm.
take care of each other like a village because, yeah, in America specifically, we have the lowest ratio of birth workers to birthing people. So that in and of itself gives you
Okay.
context of like, there's a lot of people out there
Yeah.
having birth, and there's not many of us. So we're stretched
Right.
already to our capacity. But what I love here is that um there's doulas who like they all drop their kids off together and like they all, you know, kind of come together to support the system. So like all of us can go out and do our work. And if someone's on call for a labor, okay, this person's coming in and they're watching the kids. And like that to
Right.
me is so, so immensely valuable. Um, Especially because we don't have family here. And there's, you know, a lot of layers. And
Right.
I know what that looks like from a postpartum perspective. And so we have to be real about what we're seeing. Um, and not sugarcoat it, because I think there's a lot of sugarcoating that happens with like
Yeah.
having a baby.
Yeah. I think so too. And I don't know if it's like movies, but even the women in my life that are, have older kids or, like my aunts or
Yep.
my mom or, my mother-in-law, there is this like assumption your life begins when you become a mother.
Mhm,
And that is like the only potentially.
mhm.
And that is also somewhat of a challenge because it's
Oh,
looking around and saying, okay, like I understand your experience as mom of, adults now.
mhm.
And so you are looking back, but when was it hard for you? Like, how is it this like magical experience that you're expecting me to be having in the middle of postpartum?
Right, right. And I think that's the sugarcoating we all kind of
Yes.
hear and see. And oh, it's on, you know, I'm just laying here and I'm getting my meals. And it's like no one's talking about digestion or like your breast soreness or
Mhm.
Um, how much you should be bleeding after birth, what's regular, how long does it take for the uterus to shrink back down in size? Like things that are actually important
Oh my God,
that no
seriously.
one talks
Yeah.
about.
No.
So there's a huge piece of education that comes in as a doula. And that's one of the big pillars that all of my work kind of revolves around now is like making sure people are educated. And it's not the thing I've had to walk with so much grace about is like I can hold my opinion around whatever it is that I'm sharing and educating about. My opinion actually doesn't matter because it's not my birth and this is not my baby. And
Yeah.
so I
Right.
have to give the facts without holding any emotional weight, and that's been really interesting because I'm so like intuitive and emotional, and I'm like, oh, I want you to, you know, really understand what I'm feeling, and not everyone is going to. And so there's a lot of like letting go I had to do in that of letting people come to the terms with what they're going through and what they're evolving through, and again, kind of like maybe they'll circle back around in 6 months and be like, actually, you know, like, you know, you're right. And it's not about being right or wrong. It's just when you've worked with so many people and families, there's definitely patterns and things to look for that kind of check certain boxes of like, okay, if this is happening, then maybe this is happening. And it's like, and what does that mean? And I kind of feel like a detective sometimes.
Oh my gosh, I'm sure you have to.
Yeah.
Do you find your experience is do people actually share real information with you? Or do you feel like you have to like, I don't know, pick up on things or dig a little bit or
Well, I think because I'm working so intimately. So one of the big things that this year I'm evolving into and really working a lot with is the abdominal massage. So, um, there's, a huge Mexican culture here, so it's sobatas, and that practice is really like moving the lymph and stimulating the lymph to allow the organs and the pelvis to kind of restore to balance. And so I'm working really intimately with people, and I'm like massaging their bellies and I'm palpating their uterus. And so people aren't really shy with me. And I just like to go in with that of like, it might be gassy during this, and I'm always talking about bowel movements, and I'm like, this is very real. Like, I want to make sure that you're going to the bathroom.
Right. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah,
Well, somebody has to do
I
it.
know.
Thank
It's
God.
just like, and people are like, oh my gosh, is this TMI? I'm like, as a doula, I'm like all up in your stuff when a baby is being born. So like nothing is really
Totally.
TMI. And I'm really unfazed by it. Like, I'm just like, oh, okay, yeah, it just is what it is.
Oh my gosh. Thank God for people like you. I would be like passed out on the
I
floor.
know some people who like don't like blood. There's like
Mhm.
definitely a smell in the room when people are giving birth. Like
Oh
there's a
yeah.
very particular
Oh yeah.
scent. I come home and I always just like shower off so deeply to make sure I don't smell. And yeah, I also just know that when we are listening to those threads of our life, people ask like how I came to this work, and it's again like the work chooses you. It's not that I woke up one day and was like, I'm gonna be a birth worker because it's gnarly out here. Okay. It is
I
not
mean, it
just
has to
like
be.
beautiful births. It's very intense. And so it requires a huge nervous system regulation to even go into that work. And even after births, I do a lot of system re-regulation to myself because my hormones are starting to match the hormones of the birthing mother. And so you're on this very like fight or flight journey, and you're just picking up on the energy of the room. And this is me as someone who's extremely sensitive. So I don't know if every birth worker has this experience, but because I'm very intuitive in my work, it's like I'm feeling everything. And so
Wow.
it's really hard for me to, go through the journey of birth with people. And so afterwards, I give myself a lot of like time and grace and space to just rest and recalibrate because it is very much like an emotional toll. And that's why you see so many birth workers who are burnt out. Yeah.
So how many births have you been a part of?
I think I've done at least 2 a month since I started in September. And then last month I
Wow.
did 4. This month
Whoa.
I'll only do 1. So it kind of varies. And then like some months I have one every week, and then some months I don't. And um yeah, I'm just trying to flow in a way that supports me, and I'm making sure I'm taking time off and I'm not on call
Yeah.
24/7 and all these things.
Right.
And so postpartum has been a really beautiful way to do that. And there's so many layers to that because again, you're someone who had a good maternity leave. Not everyone does. And so people don't have the time, resources, awareness to even hire a postpartum doula. They don't even know like what
Right.
postpartum doulas do.
Right.
Resources is a huge one. And it's also just we're a culture again who doesn't prioritize. You look to countries like Japan, China, Korea, in like the Netherlands, they provide doulas to you postpartum for free to come and just make sure
Oh my
you're feeding
gosh.
the baby
What a gift.
okay, and all these
Right.
things that we have questions about that we have to like search the internet and start, scouring the internet. And then in comes like all this fear of like, is the baby eating enough? Okay, well, I don't know what this means. And there's so much of a learning curve. And so there is that element of grace, especially in postpartum. We have to give ourselves
Well, I think
grace.
it's I mean,
Yeah.
truly, yeah, because you are I love how you said you're open. When I have tried to describe this to people, the word that I continue to use is like vulnerable.
Mm.
And there's even like conversations I have had like with my husband where I'm like, I understand I am being very sensitive right. That is just where I am.
Right.
I don't have the capacity to be anything else
Mhm.
but ultra sensitive And it's like this crazy opening of everything.
Yeah.
Of your mind, of your life,
Of your body.
just trying to find the
Yeah.
anchor. Yeah, exactly. Your body, like all of it. It is so hard to describe.
Yeah.
And I think like as a new mom, when I was like going through with my first one, I was so focused on how I wanted the birth to go and so scared about and nervous about the birth that I didn't even think about postpartum.
Right. That's the other thing. That's
And
very real.
you don't. You're just like, right?
Yeah.
It's just like the big scary thing at the end, and
Yeah.
I get my baby. That's it. Past that, I was like, oh, I'll like figure it out. And thank God I also had a doula to help move through the process and check in on you and like offer additional help as you start to feel that potentially you start to feel that for more support.
Right. And this is the thing that I share with a lot of my clients. Like everyone thinks that the labor is the finish line, but it's actually the starting line. That's where you start.
It is.
So you have to stop looking at it as we're going to get to the birth and then we're going to be, in the clear. It's like, okay, that's when everything is starting to recalibrate and reorient. And that's when we need more support. And not to say we don't need support during birth. We also need that. But it's like, that's why I want to work full spectrum, is because it's not to say one is more important than the other. It's just where each person, particularly in their journey, needs more care and needs more support and needs more education. And it's different for everyone. And yeah, again, there's so much you feel naive to it when you go into it. You're like, oh, okay, I know these risks of birth. Like there's things that are very obvious that a lot of people talk about.
Yeah.
But then there's, the parts of postpartum that, and even in the hospital, if you're someone who's having a hospital birth, there still is very little information shared with you throughout your journey of the hospital. It's like little
seriously.
Yeah, you're breadcrumbing people through the hospital of like, okay, and your lactation consultant's gonna come see you tomorrow. But it's like that's it. It's like, okay, well, is the baby latching okay? Is the baby even what's going on? Is there a tongue tie? All these things that we have no idea about because we're not educated or told. And so yeah, I call birth work like the Wild West. Like it's so wild out here.
Okay, and it is so wild. Another thing too that, something that I worked on very naively was putting together a birth. And I have now, after 2, which similar to a lot of your experience, my second was kind of like healing from my first. Although the first was medically great, fantastic, 2 thumbs up, way to go. But internally, it's traumatizing.
Right.
And so that next one was very healing to me and kind of like tied the ribbon on the bow. And I know not everybody gets that experience.
Right.
But for you, do you support people in a birth plan? Do you think that it's like, oh, whatever happens? Like, what's your like thought around
Okay, cool. So I created basically a huge birth plan like checklist. So basically, because this is where a lot of people get stuck. And so people don't even know what a birth plan is. So in my first appointment that I have with clients, so you sign on as a client, you come and see me, right? Like in person, I do your health history, we talk. I get to know who you are as a couple, who your birthing partner is, how you guys interact together. I kind of look at how do you like to receive support? This is a big one because some people really love words of affirmation. They're like, okay, you're doing great. Everything's looking beautiful. Oh, everything's wonderful, and they really love the praise. And there's some people who don't care about praise and they just want physical touch. And so I get to know all of that through you in the first session, essentially. And then going home, there's homework, which is a part of your birth plan, is saying like, basically I put out key points of the birth. So like, during labor, I don't want visitors. I don't want training people in the room. I want this. I do want this. So everything is kind of filled out. And then you get to go in and like check. Okay, yeah, this sounds good to me. Okay, yes, this sounds good to me. And then we pull that and put it onto a birth plan which is what you're handing over when you get to the hospital. And hospitals, I think there's a little bit of fear when people hand their birth plan over. Nurses, especially labor and delivery nurses, are so wonderful. They will honor, your wishes, what they are. And so to not feel guilty about what you're asking for. And there's also just so much, I think, shame that women go in with of like, I don't want to be too much, or I don't want to take up so much space. And I want you to have,
or who am I to know when you're the professional?
right. And I want people to have, a plan, because that is something that is like rooted in how the birth is going to unfold. And so that really does root what we're walking through and experiencing. And, I love the saying, when you make a plan, God laughs, because we have the birth plan and there's also the baby's plan. And there's also, there's like a divine element of like, spirit and God and whoever you're, connecting with during your process of birth. There's also that in the room. So it's very interesting to kind of weave between worlds. Like I say, like you're weaving very much between life, which is the baby coming in, the passage of the baby taking its first breath, and also like the death of the mom and the death of yourself and that baby spirit coming earthside. And so it's very interesting what's going on in the birth room. And not really anyone besides the birthing partner or the doula is going to be there to experience the whole spectrum of that. Like nurses and midwives and doctors come and go, but it's very brief.
Oh my gosh, it is.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. My experience is the same. I mean, I don't know what I would do without my doula there, honestly.
Yeah.
In both occasions, like, I don't know what I would do. I would be a complete mess because I am someone that needs you to hold my hand and all the things. That would be absolutely wild. Okay, I want to know about the spirit element because I think in reflection, I think I'm like, oh my gosh, to be like a doula, to be a birth worker, to see this all the time, it is such life-changing moments. And you're right, it is. A baby takes its breath, and then your single self is gone, and now you become a mother. Like there's so much that I cannot imagine. One, experiencing that day in and day out. What is that for you?
Well, I mean, I cry at every single birth. There's like this element of miracles. Like having a baby is a miracle. Having a baby come into this world is miraculous. Like, there's no other words beyond that. It's miraculous. And so, there's a lot of people who will look into, just kind of like the science part of this, which is very much like your thinking brain at the point in birth turns off and our lizard brain turns on. And that lizard brain is what allows us to go through birth. And that lizard brain is also what, anytime we've had like a psychedelic or like, that type of experience, which could be very much through breath work, it could be through nature, it could be through many different things where we're connecting with this part of our brain that is like wired for miracles. It's like looking at everything as really like beautiful and divine and perfect and trusting, and that element of time really falls away. So it's something that I really joke about in birth is like, I don't want you looking at the clock. I don't want you to know, because that pressures us to like perform. And one of the huge parts of birth work is time. Like we always need more time. And to trust the baby's timing, to trust the mother's timing, that's a huge one. And you see it all the time of like people getting induced too early, people who are over their estimated due date, which then they feel pressured that they're going to have to get induced. Instead of just trusting in this like divine element, which is time and the baby and their spirit. And it's really, as someone who's deeply intuitive, there's a lot of things that come up in the births, that are very hard to explain. like sometimes I'll see colors or I'll feel people or I'll see, people's loved ones who have passed. And I don't really share a lot of this at births, but to me, it's like a reaffirming thing that one, we're not going through birth alone. There's always mother and the baby and then the mother-baby connection. And there's also the connection to all the moms who have birthed you and all the women in your matriarchal line. They're also a part of that birth.
Right.
Whether we like it or not, we don't really have a choice.
Yeah.
And we're passing that DNA information on to baby. And so it's not just the baby and the room and whatever. Like there is this element of the unknown and it's very palpable in birth because we try to control or say like we're going to give birth like this. Okay, well maybe the baby's not coming like that, or maybe you're in this position for 3 hours and nothing's happened. And so it's a constant like readjustment, reassessment. Let's try this, see if it works. And to be listening to the body's cues, and then also like this very intuitive dance that the mother like already knows how to do. So I'm always saying like I'm just kind of following you. Like I'll cue you sometimes and remind you to breathe and do this, but I notice the more I can just let moms do that, the more they are relaxed in themselves, and then that relaxation is what's creating the opening of the pelvis. So it's a dance, always. Every single mom, no two births will ever look the same. Ever. And that's just how it is.
That is
Yeah.
That is so that you get to witness that.
Yeah. It's a gift. And I say that to everyone that I work with. I know that when people go to the end of their lives, they reflect on what were the most important parts of your life. People always say the birth of my son, the birth of my daughter. That is historically like number one or like number three, very high up on when we're looking back at our lives. And so to be with people during that day, I really don't take it lightly. I know that it's such a gift to me. It's also gifting me many things in many ways. So not only am I supporting them, they're supporting me in my practice, in my healing, in my, awareness of birth. And that's helping me become, a better doula. It'll help me become a better mother, all those things.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you are kind of preparing for that phase in your life.
Yeah. Preparing.
Yeah, exactly. If there is such a thing.
Again, it's like you make a plan and God laughs. I'm like, okay, and Mike and I are Mike's my husband. I watch a lot of families in their control around birth and around babies, and it doesn't support the baby. He doesn't support the parents. It doesn't support anyone. And I've seen it time and time again where it's like, okay, we're gonna have a baby this month because it makes sense for, the calendar and my work schedule. And I'm like, what? To me, that's just kind of crazy. And I trust that when our babies are ready to come earthside, they will. And that's it. And there's like, I went through a lot of emotions around this, but I feel in this moment just very surrendered to it of like, okay, cool. Like whenever they come, I'm elated for them to be here.
Right.
And if that takes a year, 3 years, 5 years, whatever, it's, and I'm just doing every day my work and preparing the vessel as best that I can. And just kind of staying in my joy. I think there's like so much, babies don't want to come into the world when you're stressed and like, you're panicking over things and making sure that everything is perfect in a very because babies don't work 3-dimensionally. Okay, they don't work in time on this earth the way that we're working.
Right.
They come into that and then of course learn and adapt to that type of rhythm, but when they're kind of awaiting their arrival, they're not waiting to make sure that you have the best job or whatever. They want you to be in your, embodiment of love, and they want you to be, in your joy a lot of the time of like, okay, it'll be fun for me to come back to this person, or like come be with this my mother that I'm choosing and my father that I'm choosing and my sister and their dog or whomever. So
Right.
that is that like element of the unknown again.
I love that. And I think something that happens in parenthood and motherhood, specifically in birth, is so hard is the idea of surrender.
Mhm. Yeah.
Surrendering to the timing, surrendering through calibrating your expectations versus what is reality, surrendering. There is nothing but buttons
Mhm.
that you can potentially do.
Mhm. And you see it in birth a lot too. Is like
Yes.
the harder you fight a contraction, it's not going to make the
Yes.
contraction easier. It's like the more we can
Right.
surrender and just let go, and we'll make the contraction be more, smooth, and it creates less of that like grip that we all have on life. And we're human, so it's just what we do. And it's just all curious. Like to me, there's just curiosity around all of this. Like sometimes it doesn't make most of the time it doesn't make sense. Like things that should be linear don't end up being linear, and
Right.
we're just kind of following these moments in time as they come. Because what else
Mhm.
are we gonna do? I mean, I don't
Right, exactly. And like, how much more stress do you want to put on yourself to try to control?
totally. It's not.
Yeah,
It's stress for like no outcome. There's no outcome that can
totally.
come from that.
Yes.
So it's like we can worry and stress about it, but it's not getting us closer to what we desire anyway. And so, yeah, working with so many people through their astrology, I think, has really helped in that way because, again, people want to control their astrology. Like, this is happening, so this. And it's like, okay, and free will and all these other elements that we don't see
Right.
and all these other things. And so, yeah, we just become more skillful in our dance through life, and especially in motherhood.
Yeah. So, as an astrologer
Yeah,
and being present at birth, do you are you thinking about
of
that?
course. Like,
Like,
I
of course, that's what I
I
mean.
can't not think about it. Like, I can't even watch a TV show and not think, "Oh, okay, let me guess." I guess everyone's signs when I watch. It's honest, that's my toxic trait, and I joke about it, but it's very real. And so, um, I've noticed kind of patternings in babies, like how I said last month I had a lot of births, but this month I really don't. And I've noticed that through the astrology. Like this year I birthed a lot of Pisces, like so many water babies, like so many. And um it's interesting because then their births, like this is where I'm making connection points in my brain, is like those Pisces that came into the world, they all had very, like, quote unquote watery births. Like either people who loved being in the bath, they loved being in the shower. One woman's like water broke as soon as the baby was being delivered. And so I'm noticing these patterns now within the births that kind of correlate to their astrology. And so as soon as the baby's born, I pull the birth chart, of course, naturally.
Yeah.
I send it right to the
Totally.
parents. I'm like, "This is the birth chart." I don't care if they don't
Yeah.
care, but to me, it's
Right.
fascinating. And um,
Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of things that I'm picking up on through the babies, and they know what time they wanna come into the world. Like, they are very highly attuned to, their rising sign. So the rising sign dictates the time. So it's what we're kind of ascending into in this life, and babies know when they choose that rising sign, like, "Okay, what am I stepping into?" And, some babies will wait until, the perfect I had a lot of, equinox babies this year, like, all around
Okay.
the
Yeah.
equinox, and I'm like, "Okay, all these babies are choosing this very interesting time of the year that just has so much, like, symbolism, meaning." um Yeah, so there's a huge patterning that I'm currently doing between the births and astrology.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you pop that on Substack? And I am so here for
Yeah.
it. I want to know all the
Yes.
pattern. It is
Yeah.
fascinating because I, in my very minimal experience, I 1000% believe that they choose their time.
Yeah.
1,000%, exactly everything that you're saying. And it has to mean something.
Mhm.
It's so interesting
Yeah.
to
Well, what are both of your
hear you talk about.
kids?
So I don't know all their three. I just know their sun
Okay.
signs. So for Felix, he's a Sag
Uh-huh.
sun.
Uh-huh.
And then for my little one, he's an Aquarius.
Okay, amazing. So tell me
And they were
about
both
your birth.
born in storms.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Yes, I
Yeah.
will. So Felix was, first off, he came to me in a dream,
Mhm.
and he told me that he was a boy because I kept calling him a girl.
Oh,
So I felt very connected to
yeah.
him. Yeah, very connected to him. My pregnancy was fine. I mean, I wasn't really sick. It's just very, 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 very uncomfortable then.
Mhm.
So didn't really have a bunch of anything except for the uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But I did have that feeling of closeness with
Mhm.
the birth. Was in a hospital.
Mhm.
I was with a doctor. I had a doula. I had a lot of support from the doula leading up until that point. She came and I was induced.
Mhm.
I came in for an induction because, again, one of those, I was having migraines with auras.
Mhm.
And so the doctor had recommended, hey, you're at your thing. Do you want to do the induction? I did. I came in, not giving birth, got the induction. It moved perfectly in timing.
Mhm.
I think I was laboring total maybe 8 hours.
Mhm.
And then I had talked to the doula about the birth plan, and I had said, I'm okay to labor for a while. I do want the epidural, but I didn't need it right away. I wanted to make sure I was late because sometimes the epidural can potentially slow down.
Yeah.
Or that's what was like explained to me.
Yeah.
So I was, let's get as far as I can.
Yeah.
I got to 9.5 centimeters
Mhm.
in a half hour. Like they checked it was 4, and then the next second it was like full on labor. And the moment of that was very scary for me
Yeah.
because it was completely out of control. It was not what I had wanted.
Mhm.
And I was very scared. There was like no other words.
Yeah.
And you're right. You lose time. There is no such thing as
Right.
time. There is a pain that is, I even feel bad calling it pain because yes, it's hard and it hurt like no other.
Right.
But it is a release. It's almost like a release. Like you are so, it's like cathartic.
Yeah.
It's like, I want this pain. I want to get the baby out. It's a very strange. And then the epidural kicked in and I was very happy. And everyone, the doula, the nurse, they were like, oh, great. Because you know, got to 9.5 so fast, you're going to push twice and like the baby's going to come out, which did not happen.
Right.
So 3.5 hours later,
Yeah.
the doctor comes in and she's like, hey, like she's like hustling. She walks in there, she snaps everybody up. She's like, get it out. This is not my actual OBGYN. She was fine. So she was like kind of like creating a hullabaloo, a sense of urgency around
Right.
the birth. Also, I did not,
Yeah.
but like came in, did all of that, and then left, and then came and she's like, I'm gonna get the clamps because I need to pull this baby out. And then that terrified me.
Right.
Because she basically threatened me. And I was like, no.
Yeah.
And then literally 2 pushes later, Felix came. Went straight on my chest, latched immediately. We did not have him take a bath for a month. Like just perfect, beautiful, amazing. That doctor did, the first thing she said was like, he is perfect, which I really appreciated. It like made everything like calm down.
Yeah.
But when I spoke to my doula after, my doula also said, she's like, I can't believe she did that. She like straight up threatened you and made it happen to get this baby out as soon as you could. So that was him. Second time around, I wanted the epidural sooner. I wanted to labor at home for as long as I could. And I want the getting into labor to be as natural as possible, which is exactly what happened. He came a week early from my due date, and we did labor at home, and then we went to the hospital, and it was my OBGYN that ended up delivering him. I had the epidural. I came in, it was 4 centimeters. I had the epidural at 6 centimeters. 4 hours later, he came out in 2 pushes with my OBGYN. She holds up the baby, and then she's like, Elsa, take your baby, because I was like kind of in shock. So I took little one. And then the first thing she told me, she's like, he looks exactly like you. And I'm like, that's terrifying, because his face is smashed and I look like a complete train. So thank you, but that's wild.
You're like, obviously it's my baby. Of course it looks like me.
Yeah, exactly. But she was like, oh my gosh, she looks exactly like you. Please take your baby. But that was like such a more healing process. And part of the contractions that I was so happy to experience with the second birth was that feeling of out of control is a choice. And so with the second one, I wanted to choose surrender. And safety. And I got to.
That's beautiful. One of the things I love to share, and just hearing you voice, is labor is the only time where pain becomes productive. We will never in our lives have other moments of productive pain. And so that is a very strange thing to go through and be like, the contractions are uncomfortable, but it's productive because every contraction is moving the baby further and further along through the birth canal. And so I love hearing your stories too, because Felix, your first baby, like going from 4 to 9.5, that's very Sagittarius. Like, they move at their own pace. They're quick. Okay, they're fast. They have the fire. They're like, okay, we're moving. It's happening. So that's very Sag. And then, the Aquarius is like, I'm gonna come on my own time. I'm not listening to anyone. I'm doing my own thing, and we have to honor these parts of people and their stories. And something we didn't talk about, but that I love to share too, is I had studied rebirthing breath work many, many years ago. And like, I didn't know why at the time. I was like, I'm just kind of fascinated by this. And I now see how that correlates so much into birth work. And we talk a lot about how, that birth imprint is how people are going to go through their lives. That's what they believe in rebirthing breathwork, is like the way that we are born is also how we're going to navigate through life. And so I just know on my birthday, I call my mom and I ask her to tell me my birth story. And she's like, you didn't want to come out. Like, I was really content in there. She's like, you were just not moving. She's like, and I was like, yeah, that's very true to how I like navigate life now. Like, if I don't want to do something, I'm not doing it. And I'm not going to be forced. You can't tell me to hurry up. I'm not doing it. Like, I'm on my own timeline. And it's just really fascinating to think about. And also, very important piece of what you spoke to was the words that are said when you're in birth are things that imprint into your brain and body for a very long time. So like your OB in the first birth coming in and saying they're going to have to grab the baby. Highly traumatizing. Why are we saying this to mothers? Let's have a little bit of discernment here. So I do this a lot with husbands and birthing partners, where like if they say something that is, teetering an edge, I'm always in the corner like this. Stop. Because I know how open and sensitive you are. So all of those words hold a lot of weight. And if someone comes in and, I've seen this in birth now where they're like, your baby's really big. If no one said that to the mom, that birth would have been completely different. But as soon as someone said, your baby's big, quote unquote, whatever that means, this mom, the whole birth now is panicked. She's like, I can't birth this baby. The baby's too big. I'm like, if that midwife did not say about the baby, we wouldn't be, so it's real. People have to just, be aware how open you are sensitive wise during the process of labor. And postpartum too, like what people say to you. So I try and be very extra cautious of the words that I'm sharing, and am I saying something because it's, necessary, or do I just feel like talking? Those are things that you don't really think about, but I've started to really notice in my own personal landscape.
Yeah. And you're right. I mean, when you think about the process of birth, it is very mental. And I know that's why the doctor did. It was obvious. She
Yeah.
was like, I need to like scare her to have her child.
Right.
Wrong tactic.
Wrong
But wrong
Totally.
tactic completely. Totally. However, that scared me.
Yeah.
I mean, that like made an impact into that. And then the second time around also was equally as impactful,
Totally.
just in a very different, more controlled way.
Right. And I think too, second time of your birth is just totally different than the first. The first, you've never felt a contraction. You don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
People are like, what's a mucus plug? Okay, yeah, let me.
Oh, God, I know.
No one knows. No one talks about it. And then the second time, you're like, okay, yeah, I've been here before. And your body does remember. Like, there is that very physically coded thing of like, oh, I know how to go into labor and I know how to birth because you've done it before. So you feel like I could do it again. And that's generally why there's a lot of reasons why second time, the second child is born faster. But it's kind of one of them is like the body remembers how to go through the process of labor. And so second births generally are a lot shorter than the first.
Mm-hmm.
Your first birth was pretty slow though.
Yeah, that's
first,
what everybody said. And I mean, again,
you're like,
time does not
exactly.
exist. Seriously. Like I know I pushed for 3.5 hours. It could have been 5. I like had no
right.
sense
Totally.
of actually. But yes, they both came very quickly.
Yeah, and it is just like a testament to the mental preparation that you did.
Yes.
That's
I
a
think
big
that
piece
is
of it.
so huge.
Yeah.
So for you, when you think about your personal preferences, you don't have to share if you don't want to, but I am very curious as to how you would like your dream birth to be. You can say no.
No,
You can tell me
I
no.
will share because I am nuts. Okay, let's just say that. I'm the person who's like, have you ever heard of people that give birth with dolphins? Have you ever heard of this?
No.
Okay, this is like
no.
Okay.
Is this a fringe doula situation that I need to understand?
No. It's like a super hippie. I don't know. But there was a lot of research, I think it was in the 60s, when they were doing a lot of psychedelic research and they were working on dolphins. Especially because dolphins have such a large prefrontal cortex. They have a larger emotional brain, just like whales. So they sense emotion a lot differently than humans do. And so people were going and giving birth with dolphins. It was like dolphin-assisted labor.
Wow.
And they were going in the water, and the dolphins were like literally helping the babies come through. And it's a joke that I say this, but it's also not a joke because I would love that. Anyone who knows me, like, I'm obsessed with the water. I am like such a water baby. I would love to be in the ocean, just like in a little tide pool and like give birth. Like, is that going to happen? Probably not, but I will hope to recreate that in my own way. I feel blessed because I know so many of the midwives in San Diego now. So I have like my little roster on my mind. Like, okay, who did I let be in my birth? Okay, this midwife, this doula. But yeah, I think what I will share about my own birth plan, and that's something I've been thinking of a lot because there was a point where I definitely would have said, like, I just want to free birth the baby and just have the baby on my own. And I've started to reframe that for myself because there is this element of having a woman with another woman during birth that creates a very different environment. And so they call it like the wise woman in the room. Like, I don't care if you're a licensed midwife or professional midwife or certified nurse midwife. I just want someone there who can be support and has gone through the process of birth and can be my wise woman in the room, whoever that is. And that really is for the mother, to have that like wise wisdom keeper to be there and to support you. And so I've reframed that a lot for myself, to really like trust other people. I think that's my own like internal, workings that I've had to go through, but
Yeah. Yeah.
so it goes.
Oh my gosh, I love
Yeah.
it. Would you want a home birth?
Yeah.
Or like, would you want to do like a, yeah.
Yeah, I would like a home birth. I would also be open to a birthing center. There's a hospital here too that has a really beautiful birthing center, so I'd be open to that. And I'm also like letting the baby lead me. Like, okay, you tell me.
Yeah.
Where do you want to go? Where do you feel the most
Yeah.
safe to come into the world? And it's such an interesting thing, like when you see people give birth in cars or like the baby chooses
Oh my
where they're coming into the world.
Yes.
And if it's on the side of the highway,
So
then it
crazy.
is.
Then it is. Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh, I know it's so wild. I think I told you, both of mine came in like massive storms. We were in Austin, and they're like, we don't get storms, and then all of a sudden, like just ice and whatever and all the things,
Wild.
and wild. And then both times, people were like making jokes about Princess Elsa or Queen Elsa coming in and like giving birth at this time where there's like ice storms in like a place that should just not have ice
Right.
storms.
There should not be any ice storms. You're like,
No.
so be it. This is what the babies and I are choosing together. I came during a winter storm because I was born at the end of December, but I was born during a winter storm. My mom was like, I don't think I'm gonna be able to get to the hospital. And that was like her fear because there was a lot of snow, and I love the snow. Like and it's hilarious because I live in Southern California. I love the silence of like deep winter where there's like, you could just hear the snow melting and there's like crackling fire and like it just feels silent. That is like the happiest I always am. It's like in that like deep winter. Summer comes and I feel so out of body. And it is true to like how we are elementally wired as beings. And so they chose like, okay, these storms are coming. I'm here to shake up your life. We're going to go into labor together.
Yeah. I would 100% agree.
Yeah.
It's all divine time.
Totally.
So, oh my gosh. I mean, okay, one last question before you head
Yeah.
out. Is if you could give advice to a new mom,
Mhm.
what would be like your top you would?
I think having the wise woman,
Sure.
like really, connecting with women doesn't have to be a woman in your lineage. It could be just someone that you find resonance with, like an elder, a teacher, someone who has wisdom that they can impart on you, because there is that level of of being naive as a new mom and being new into a family. And so yeah, just seeing who that trusted person can be. And it looks different for everyone. It might be your grandmother, maybe your aunt, could be if you have an older sister, whoever, just finding that person that you really trust and confide in and can support you through that journey. And that is like, to me, invaluable gold. Like, to just be heard and held and loved by another woman is so deeply important to our maternal health outcomes and how our mental health is. And to me, that is just so beyond value. Like, we can never put a value to that. And like, people think like they need all these things, the baby shower, da, 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 da. It's like, no, we just need people who like see us and love us and support us unconditionally. Because motherhood is messy, and to think that we have to go through it like very like neat and tidy and linearly is nuts. So
true.
yeah, my wisdom is the wise woman.
I love it.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Amazing.
Oh my God, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I mean, seriously, your work is incredible.
Thank you so much.
I'm so proud of
Thank you.
I'm so envious of all the clients that get to work with you. Should I have another baby just so we can doula together?
I was thinking about that.
Together?
Like, well, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to It's a Circus. If today's episode made you feel a little less alone, share it with a friend who might need it too. We are building something amazing at the Turner Brothers Circus, an entire space designed for parents to find connection, laughter, and support. I'd love for you to be a part of it. Remember, you're doing better than you think. Stay grounded, stay real, and embrace that beautiful mess. And as always, the show must go on. Until next time.